Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be doing a different type of video. I'm going to be ranking the cycles of America's Next Top Model from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, I am going to be leaving out cycle 23 from this list, mostly because it has a very different vibe from the original run of 22 cycles, so keep that in mind. I will only be ranking the first 22 cycles of the show. Also, I'm going to be talking about spoilers from all these seasons, so if you don't want to be spoiled, click away now because I'm going to be talking about the winners, the losers, and everything in between. Okay, starting off the list with number 22, which is cycle 20, all the way down at the bottom. I think we were all really excited to get a season with both male and female models, but then we got cycle 20, which was just a disaster that was so focused on showmances and almost nothing else. We had Corey, who was really awesome, and I personally liked Nina, and I kind of liked Phil, but other than that, it was just a flop all around. Marvin was especially painful, and the modeling was just eh. And on top of that, the scoring system was still in place, which is one of the worst things that America's Next Top Model has ever done. Next up in slot 21 is cycle 2. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who really like this season, but this one's always been pretty forgettable for me. There are definitely some standout moments, but every cycle has one of those. We get the iconic phone call with Shandy and her boyfriend, and Camille's famous "This is my signature walk" quote, but other than that, there's not really that much for me. We got a strong winner with Joanna, but apart from that, there's not much else that I really loved about this season, so it comes in second to last. Coming in at number 20 is cycle 19, aka the college edition, which is the cycle where the aforementioned awful scoring system was put into place. We'll get into the fatal flaw of that later down the line, but I think we can all agree that it was really bad. On top of this, the judges panel wasn't so great, and there were definitely some people that went further than they should have. Some of the contestants were pretty unbearable, and the best part of the season was Victoria and her quirks. Coming in at number 19 is cycle 3. Now, I know that cycle 3 is a pretty big fan favorite, but I don't like it so much. I think it was that most of the models were pretty unlikable for me. I think Yaya was really strong, and Takara was great, and Norelle was really fun, but other than that, I really disliked the cast. The only real standout moments for me were the brownie mutilation and the fact that Amanda was going blind. Other than that, I didn't really get that much out of the season, other than some really catty models. Coming in at number 18 is cycle 22. This cycle was alright. I really liked people like Niall and Lycie, and I had a lot of fun watching Devin and Mikey, despite some of their shortcomings in the personality department. And then there was characters like Mbycle, who were just really out there. Other than that, not much stands out to me for this season, other than the fact that Niall was obviously killing it and going to win. The end. Number 17 on the list is cycle 1, the cycle that started it all. Competition-wise, this is definitely the weakest season. The format was still finding its footing, the judging was a little wonky, the call-outs weren't quite streamlined yet, and they were still trying to figure out what needed to be included in the show and what didn't. I think it's kind of fun and quirky, but it also makes it feel pretty unpolished. There were some really interesting controversies like the Christians versus Ebony and Elise and the nude photo shoot, and I like the season a lot better than some of the other early seasons, but entertainment-wise, I don't think it quite stacks up to some of the later seasons. Coming in at number 16 is cycle 21, which I think is the best iteration of the guys versus girls cycles. For me, the contestants this season were by far the most memorable guys and girls casts, and Will is one of my favorite models from the show, and he was an instigator for some really important discussions about gender between the contestants. That being said, the fatal flaw of the scoring system was very apparent in this season when Tyra just randomly decided to completely tank one of the contestants' scores and almost eliminate them. Not cool. Coming in at number 15 is cycle 15. I think that this was a perfectly fine season of America's Next Top Model. I liked the high fashion aspect to it, and I thought as we got closer to the end, we ended up with some really strong models. But if anyone said that they were even vaguely unsure of who would win from like episode 3, I'd be shocked. There were some fun moments along the way and some really awesome photo shoots like the one where they had to pose as designers, but it was really obvious that Anne was going to win from the very beginning. Coming in at number 14 is cycle 4, aka the season where Tyra screamed at Tiffany. Obviously, that's the most famous moment in the history of the show, but there were also some other really memorable moments, such as the horrifying flesh-eating disease and the moment when Rebecca fainted in judging. This cycle had some really strong models like Kaylin and Naima, and some really strong personalities like Tiffany and Brandy, but in the end, I don't think I connected with this season as much as I did with others, and I just like a lot of other cycles better than this one. Coming in at number 13 on the list is Cycle 13. There are a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this season, and there were some really strong models. I absolutely loved Erin, but people like Nicole, Laura, Jennifer, Sunday, Brittany, and Ray were all really awesome. Even Bianca was a really fun character when she was on. However, there was a lot of cattiness from people like Ashley and Lulu, and there weren't really a ton of standout moments. Plus, Tyra kind of drove the petite theme into the ground. Number 12 on the list is Cycle 14. This is one of the cycles where I rewatched the beginning a lot, but I've only seen the end once because despite the great aspects of the season, the negatives tend to get in the way. There are a lot of really interesting dynamic things happening at the beginning, but then there's just a lot of cattiness and fighting that brings down the mood quite a lot. Raina is definitely one of my favorite models in the history of the show, but apart from her, there was just a lot of negativity on the cycle. Coming in at number 11 is Cycle 6. Hear me out here. I know this is a major fan favorite cycle, but this was one of the last cycles I watched, and I think because of that, it's not as memorable for me. The final two of Danielle and Joni were so strong, and there were some really standout moments like the high heels challenge and the racism controversy and everything dealing with Jade and Ferranda. We're at the point here where I don't really have a problem with the cycles. I just personally like some of them more than others, and this is one of the ones that didn't personally click with me quite as much as others. Coming in at number 10 is Cycle 9, which was actually one of the first cycles I watched that made me fall in love with the show. There were so many memorable moments this season. Ebony quit, Bianca was a major character, and so was Heather. I personally really loved Jenna and Chantal, and I wish one of them would have won over Celicia, and I'm not even going to get into that whole Celicia winning controversy. But I don't think that her win ruins a cycle that was otherwise really interesting with some really great models and some dramatic events. Moving on to number 9 on the list, which is Cycle 16. Now this was the first cycle that I got to watch as it aired, and I love the top 4 of this cycle. I thought the best 4 models definitely made it to the end. Brittany and Molly were total standouts for me the entire season, so I loved seeing them as the final 2. I also thought that some of the concepts for the photo shoots this season were super cool, and I loved Alexandria as a villain. There were several models this season that I thought were super strong. Coming in at number 8 is Cycle 12, aka the cycle that Allison lost, which is basically all that anyone cares about in this cycle. Cycle 12 holds a special place in my heart as the first cycle I ever watched. Allison, Fo, and Celia are still some of my favorite models in the history of the show. It may not be the most dynamic season in the competition, but for me there were a ton of memorable moments and a ton of models that I really enjoyed, so it's a season that I personally just really love. Coming in at number 7 is Cycle 11. This cycle was a super strong group of models. There were certainly some unlikable or weak people at the beginning of the cycle, but even the entirety of the final 8 were all really strong. And not only were they really strong, they also had super interesting backstories. Almost all of them had something really interesting and unique going on, and it was just a really awesome cycle with tons of interesting personalities and great modeling. Coming in at number 6 is Cycle 17, which is All-Stars. I feel like a lot of people have a slightly lower opinion on All-Stars, but I loved the season. The finale was super weird with Anjali's disqualification, and I think we're all still disappointed that we never got an Allison win, but the music video challenge is one of my favorites, and the Michael Jackson photo shoot was also really awesome. Overall, I really loved this season, despite the fact that the worst phrase on the planet, which is pot leadum, was coined this season. Seriously, burn the phrase, bury the ashes. Coming in at number 5 is Cycle 10. Now, the winner of this season is one of the worst, most disappointing winners, but this is a season that really stands out to me. Lauren is one of my favorite models in the history of the show, and I loved Anya, and we get some really memorable moments like Allison being Allison, and Kimberly's quit. I think we all think that Anya deserved it over Whitney, but I think we got some cool photo shoots like the music themed one and the paint photo shoot, and I think that overall there was some really strong modeling. Okay, so we've now broken into the top 4, which for me are my ultimate favorite seasons, far and away above everything else. Starting out at number 4 with Cycle 5. This cycle for me has it all. Great models, interesting personalities, drama, drama, drama. Cassandra and her hair debacle has become one of the most infamous moments in the show, as is everything to do with Kim and her relationship with Sarah. And the models this cycle were so good. The final two were both awesome. Lisa ended up coming back and winning All-Stars, and then there's Kim, who's one of my all-time favorites. This was just a really stacked cycle. Coming in at number 3 for me is cycle 8. Once again, a cycle that ticks the box in every category. First of all, the photo shoots this season were absolutely amazing. All the photo shoots from episode 2 through episode 8 are some of my favorite in the history of the show. Plus, we had a lot of really strong models. Jasleen was amazing right out the gate, and JL was this huge personality that I really enjoyed watching. And then there were also memorable moments like JL getting pushed into the pool by 50 Cent and Britney's meltdown after Go-Sees. Just overall, this cycle is the total package for me. Coming in at number 2 is cycle 18, aka British Invasion. First off, I love the makeovers this season. Tyra got a little hokey with the USA theme, but she introduced some really funky colors and cuts, and it was just super cool. This season was completely stacked with amazing models. The final two of Sophie and Laura were amazing, but people like Alicia, Annalise, Catherine, and Ebony were also fantastic, and Asmarie is one of my favorite models in the history of the show. We also get the now infamous moment of Louise storming out of judging because she was mad at Kelly Catrone, and we also have the amazing music video challenge, which is possibly my favorite challenge in the history of the show. This is just an amazing season all around. And here it is, number 1, my favorite cycle in the history of the show, cycle 7. This is just an awesome, iconic cycle. The models this season are some of the most memorable for me. Carrie D and Melrose make up one of the strongest final 2 pairings in the history of the show. Plus, we get people like Anshul and the twins, who are total standouts. Monique was the weirdest, most out there villain in the history of the show, and we got some really great dramatic moments with her as well. Plus, we got some really awesome photo shoots. The circus characters one and the celebrity impersonation one are still 2 of my absolute favorites. Overall, this is just definitely one of the most memorable cycles for me, and I've watched it over and over and over, and it never gets old. So that is it for my rankings of the cycles of America's Next Top Model. Let me know if this is something that interests you that you would want to see more of in the future, because trust me, I have more ranking videos up my sleeve if you want to see more of them. As always, links to all my social media will be down in the description. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!